There are Jewish anti-apartheid activists now that are raising their voices loud throughout the world, right? That are challenging it at every single level. One of the things that I think people should watch is Simone Zimmerman from If Not Now. They put out a documentary called
Hmm.
Israelism. So they talk about how young Jewish kids have woken up to this reality of the state of Israel that was given to them, that completely flew in the face of any ideals that they thought were actually imparted to them by actual Judaism and their actual value systems, and that are now challenging apartheid,
Yeah.
challenging the occupation even before October, right? So it's, look, at the end of the day, there's nothing that can provoke the humanity of a person like seeing other human beings suffering. And you can put some fancy diplomatic language on that all that you want, and you can dehumanize the one who is being murdered to an extent. But at some point, that's a 5-year-old child.
Yeah.
At some point, these are hungry people that are going to get bags of bread that are coming back with their literal family members in the same bags, in pieces. At some point, that moral outrage will be provoked by anyone with a heart. And I think that's what, and I thank you for the opportunity, honestly, and people that are challenging the narrative. I think that's what's necessary right now for the American public is go to the source, the media
Yeah.
source, the land source if you can, whatever it is, but go to the source. Stop accepting that secondhand, perfectly curated genocidal narrative that is telling you that these millions of people that have lived in their land for thousands of years across generation deserve to be thrown out of their homes systematically, have their state stolen from them, have no passports, have no access to the borders outside, have no self-determination, have skunk water sprayed on them by the government, and then have settlers burn their olive trees to the ground, throw them out of their houses with absolutely no repercussions. At some point, a decent human being, even if you're not Christian or Jew or Muslim, even if you have no Abrahamic attachment whatsoever, you're just a
Right.
decent person. You're going to look at that and go, I'm not okay with this. And I'm definitely not okay with a significant amount of my tax dollars. I mean, like, we don't spend a
Yeah.
little bit on the occupation, by the way. We spend
Right.
billions, billions and billions of dollars. How much debt is this country in? How many people are starving in the streets? You're seeing the homeless population grow everywhere. You're seeing that people don't have access to basic health necessities, basic income necessities, basic welfare. Yet this country can somehow always pass through both chambers and both parties $17 billion bills, $30 billion bills to keep funding the most sophisticated military in the world to decimate young Palestinian children. So at some point, it's like a decent human being goes, no, I can't do this anymore. I
Yeah.
can't be silent. And it's not enough to just be disturbed. It's important and imperative that everyone who is disturbed starts to challenge their spaces wherever they are, despite all the suppression. Say, look, we got to open our eyes and see for ourselves what's really been happening all of these years to these people, and why we're a part of it.
When I was over there, I was just thinking of this young girl, just a preteen, not even a teenager, maybe 12. And she looked me in the eye. She found out I was an American. And she looked at me and she said, "Can you just go back and tell them to stop paying for this? Just tell your government to stop paying for this. Stop paying for this." And so that's what she said to me. She was just this young girl and living in, one of the refugee camps in the West Bank, and just not even in Gaza, not and she just, it was just heartbreaking seeing this, and I wanted to film it, but they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me film her because they didn't want to risk her life. They were worried about her safety or her family's safety if I put her on social media begging. And she wanted to. She was like, she grabbed my camera and she's like, "Film me." She was this young girl, and she just said, and she was crying, and she just said, "Can you just tell Americans, why are you guys paying for this? Why do you support this?" And she was this beautiful, beautiful young girl. I mean, it was just absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, it really, it's it's really horrible. And you come back from that, and it's just like, what in the world is going on? Like, we have been lied to this whole time. And one of the points that I want to make is that it really becomes very poignant and obvious when American Palestinians, like if you were to go back as an American, I met so many Americans who were born and raised in America, in Ohio, in California, and their parents had left during the Nakba. They then immigrated here. They went back to Palestine in the Oslo during the Oslo, thinking, hey, we could rebuild. They started businesses thinking now is a good time. We can maybe rebuild. And so they've got businesses there. So they're over there now. The younger generation has moved back over there, trying to help with these family businesses, trying to keep Palestine going. And these are Americans through and through, like you and I. And when Israel finds out that they're Palestinian, because they have American passports, so when you're an American, you could travel anywhere you want in the whole region. You have special privilege. When they find out that these Americans are actually Palestinian heritage, and they're educated in the United States, they're born and raised, they're American, but they go over there, they restrict their access. Suddenly, after about 3 years, they say, wait a minute, you're not here, you're here to build Palestine. We can't have that. And they restrict their access. One guy I knew, his grandmother lives in Jerusalem. He runs a business now in Ramallah, born and raised in Newport Beach, California. They found out and they restricted him, and he can't even visit his grandmother without asking for permission.
I've never been able to visit. I mean, I'm an American. Kim, like people come, if you want to know how sick the psychological propaganda is and how sick the tactics are, I have members from my community that are not Palestinian, but that are American, that will, make it through to go visit the Al-Aqsa Mosque or something like that. And they come back, and the Israeli authorities at the airport will send them messages to me. So you live in Dallas, go tell that loudmouth Palestinian this, and that.
Wow.
They'll name me. I've had over 20 people from my own community come back with my name in the mouth of the Israeli officials at the border. If you're a Palestinian American activist, if you dare, open your mouth. And let me tell you something. I have family members that have been thrown out of their homes. I have family members that have been killed in the West Bank and in Gaza. I have family members throughout. And the ones that have survived beg us not to say anything about them, because if Israeli press picks up on us speaking about family members and relatives, the next day an IDF soldier could show up at your house, or a settler could show up at your house, or an airstrike could hit your house. And it's all revenge for the Palestinian American that opens their mouth outside. This is sick. This is genocide at every level. And so, I mean, what Israel is, this is extermination. Erase Palestinian voices abroad and erase Palestinian lives domestically. It's a two-pronged policy that's been working, unfortunately, against the Palestinian people. And the Palestinian people are being told that you're supposed to shut up and accept this in every way. That, you can't even boycott Israel. Like, you got Palestinian here in Texas. You had a Palestinian teacher, Palestinian American school teacher, that refused to sign an oath that she would not boycott Israel in order to teach at an elementary school in Texas. What in the world?
It's outrageous. Yeah.
What in the world? Like, I can't get a job here unless I'm willing to sign a paper that I won't boycott the entity that drove
a foreign
my
country. Could you imagine if it was China? Like if they said, okay, you're not allowed to boycott China, otherwise you'll lose your job. I mean, Americans would go berserk if it was that, if we were asked to pledge loyalty to a foreign country like that. But Israel, for some reason, it's okay. And you're right. It's the one country where there are laws in this country that protect that country. People are not allowed to protest. We are, as Americans, limited from protesting Israel if we want to keep jobs or I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, you get doxxed online, you lose your job. I mean, you have chief surgeons at hospitals that have lost their jobs for sharing a ceasefire now on their Instagram story. Like, you have story after story after story after story. And so this is no longer just a war on Palestinians. This is a war on humans of conscience, and a war on people that want to have their voices heard in the face of the slaughter of people that have been silenced, and that demand that their money not be used to partake in genocide and apartheid any longer. Look, there are legal determinations, and this is the point here. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty will be cited on every other conflict by this government as legitimate sources of human rights. But because they have called Israel an apartheid state, they are not to be taken seriously or as credible sources on Israel. You have South Africa, right? Nelson Mandela, who's hailed as a hero in the United States now, Desmond Tutu is hailed as a hero now, but when the South Africans take Israel to court and say, this is exactly what we experienced as apartheid, and in fact, it's even worse with the Palestinians,
Yeah.
then suddenly those voices are silenced and not heard. The voices of the civil rights movement, whether it's Malcolm X or James Baldwin or Angela Davis or whatever it may be, right across the board, they'll be lionized on everything but Palestine. Let's
Yeah.
not talk about what they said about what's happening to Palestinians over and over and over and over again. And I think when it became clearest to us as Palestinian Americans, I'll actually tell you, is when Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian American Christian journalist, Palestinian American Christian journalist. Just remove the Palestinian part.
Right.
Let's pretend that she's not a Palestinian. Let's just say she was an American Christian journalist wearing a press vest, reporting from a war zone, was shot dead in plain sight by American-funded snipers, Israeli snipers. The Israeli government, as they always do, deny culpability in the beginning, and then the investigations all turn up, which has been happening in Gaza frequently, right, with the narratives that have otherwise been accepted and already done their damage. Once the investigations prove that Israel indeed committed that murder, and the American government said, we'll do something if it indeed turns out to be that Israel was guilty for murdering an American Christian journalist. Just forget the Palestinian part, right?
Right.
Nothing happened. On top of that, Shireen Abu Akleh's funeral, you saw in plain sight Israeli soldiers attack the pallbearers, almost knock the coffin down. What a shameful display of unaccountable brutality. And America did nothing. Americans did nothing. Why? Because once you put that Palestinian on the American Christian journalist, she not only ceases to be an American Christian journalist, she ceases to be a human being. And that's what we're talking about when we say that the way that the Palestinians have been dehumanized and the way that Palestinian voices are being silenced is unlike anything we've ever seen before. And we've had enough of it. And I think that our people in Gaza are facing the brunt of it. And if they can, if they can endure that, then we can endure this, right? I mean, but we have to keep on raising our voices. Americans of conscience have to keep on raising their voices. The legal work is going to be done. I think that civil liberties unions will challenge, all of these encroachments on just basic laws. And that's not just an American reality, by the way. It's happening in many countries in the West, in the United Kingdom, right? I mean, you won't see the Prime Minister of the UK speak as passionately about anything else as he will Palestinian suppression. Germany, of all places, which was actually, complicit in the mass extermination of Jews, Germany, of all places, will not accept for Palestinian flags to be flown in the public space and will penalize people that speak out against Israel's genocide. That's awfully curious, right? France and the French suppression of pro-Palestinian voices, awfully convenient when the actual, the actual murderers of Jewish people in the 20th century are stopping people from raising their voices against a genocide in the 21st century, and classing that as anti-Semitism, classing our protests. Germany is classing our protests as anti-Semitic. The United States, which turned away Jewish refugees in the 20th century, is classing our protests as anti-Semitic and trying to silence us. All the while, we had to bury, and I'm sorry, I know I'm speaking too long, but a 6-year-old boy, Wadir Fayoumi, in Chicago, just a week after this all, was stabbed to death 26 times. I went to that funeral. I met his mother. I attended his burial. There was so much outrage and disgust on the part of one of the largest Palestinian communities in the United States. Why in the world did this happen? And why in the world did we not do anything about it? And then in my own community, one of the children of the presidents of a mosque here went to the protest in Austin 3 weeks ago and wound up getting stabbed as well. Thankfully, he survived, but he's still trying to recover, still trying to walk again, simply for being at a pro-Palestinian protest. So this is reaching a state of emergency for everyone around the world. But I think first and foremost, nothing else matters right now except for ending the genocide, getting a ceasefire in and ending the genocide. There's literally nothing else that matters until that's done. America could drop a few loaves of bread, right? The Biden administration could say we're going to deliver 30,000 meals, but so long as you're delivering $30 billion of bombs, those 30,000 loaves of bread are nothing but a cheap PR stunt, and we see right through it, and we see right through this administration. And this government, this administration, is complicit at every level of this genocide.
Well, we only have, we are short on time. We only have about a minute left. So can you just explain to us in 1 minute what Ramadan is? You're coming up on the celebration of Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
Is it a celebration, or is it, what would you call it?
Thank you again, by the way. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate your voice, and I appreciate your just human emotion. It's rare to see someone who's interviewing you actually recall a moment, a human moment, and actually let that humanity come through. So I want to thank you again. And Ramadan is a month in which we restrain ourselves from food, drink, and intimacy from right before sun up to sundown for the entire day. And it is meant to be a moment in which a month in which we feed our souls instead of our bodies, in which we gain a greater God consciousness by recognizing that those blessings that we take for granted are indeed blessings that we shouldn't take for granted, and come to know the source better, being God. And in the process of becoming more God conscious, become more conscious of ourselves and our purpose in this world, and also more conscious of others, and develop empathy. And it's really interesting that empathy is one of the core goals of fasting. And we would tell people every year in Ramadan, imagine what it's like to not have food and drink, and think about all those hungry people around the world. This month, we are seeing Palestinian kids starving to death on our screens. I don't think we have to teach empathy. I think we have to, find a way to channel all of that more effectively into worship. And part of worship is raising awareness and trying to stop the ongoing genocide. So it's certainly a somber mood this Ramadan. It doesn't feel, there isn't much celebration or jubilation in the air. It's a lot of sadness right now. But sadness is part of spirituality too, right? It's meant to drive purpose. And I think that many people who maybe did not find their greatest sense of purpose before have certainly found it now. And just thank you to everyone that is raising the voice of the Palestinian people. Despite all odds, despite all suppression, please keep going and don't fatigue. It's not enough to just end the genocide. We need to talk about what preceded the genocide, what preceded this horrific situation. As I said, on October 7th, if you're just waking up to this reality, if you just started paying attention, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem if you just started paying attention. Then don't claim that all human life has value to you, because Palestinian lives clearly did not matter to you before October 7th, and they clearly don't now. So if you clearly care about all children's lives, and a Muslim life and a Jewish life and a Christian life are all equal to you, in the course of this interview, another set of Palestinians would have been killed, unfortunately. So we need everyone to really rise to the moment.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Omar Suleiman. Really appreciate your time. Hey guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like this segment. Now, you might be wondering, this seems like it's part of a bigger show. You're right, it is. The full show is at KimIversonShow.com. So what you're watching is just a clip. And if you want to get the full experience, then you got to go to KimIversonShow.com. The show airs Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, at KimIversonShow.com. That is where you can watch the full show. Here, you just get clips. So click on the link down below, go to the full show, enjoy. Otherwise, I'll see you next time right here. And be sure, once again, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.